You're about to retire, but you have one nagging fear. Did you save enough to be able to enjoy your retirement years? In this video, we will show that the way you draw down your savings can make a big difference in your overall income. If you do it right, you might increase your annual income by $20,000 or more. As a bonus, you will reduce your investment and inflation risk. Consider a couple called Dan and Kathy who are about to retire. Dan is 63 and Kathy is 60. They've saved $800,000 in their RRSPs and another $200,000 in their TFSAs. And they have paid off the mortgage on their house. In addition, both will get pensions from both OAS and CPP. Dan and Kathy have set themselves an income target of $80,000 a year from all sources, plus adjustments in future years for inflation. At a minimum, they want to achieve that income target until they're both in their 90s. At that point, they will no longer be worried if their money runs out because they'll have the equity in their home to fall back on. We will assume that their RRSP and TFSA will earn a future investment return of 4.5% a year, less 1.5% for investment fees, which brings their net return down to just 3%. Achieving their target income with such low returns is going to be a challenge, but let's see what happens. The first strategy that Dan and Kathy consider is where they draw only the interest on their RRSP and TFSA, but do not touch the principal. In reality, they can't do this in all years because you have to withdraw a minimum amount from the RRSP once it turns into an RRIF at age 71. We will ignore this restriction because they could always redeposit any excess withdrawals. This chart shows their income from all sources. First, here's their target income. Then their income from CPP and OAS. And then we added the income from RRSP and TFSA. Remember, they were drawing only the interest from these two sources, not the principal. As you can see, they don't get even close to their target income. So why are we even talking about this strategy? It's because it's what a lot of retirees do. Many are afraid that once they start to draw down their principal, their money might run out too soon. By withdrawing only the interest, this can't happen. But this isn't a good enough reason to follow this strategy, since it doesn't produce enough income to let them really enjoy their retirement years. Besides, Dan and Kathy would have way too much money left at the end of their lives. Do they really want to pass along all their money to their 60-year-old children rather than spending some of it on themselves? Still, this is our base case and a way to assess other strategies we will look at. Another well-known strategy is the 4% rule. This was devised by William Bengen in the 1990s. Under the 4% rule, Dan and Kathy would withdraw 4% of their savings in their first year of retirement. This would amount to $40,000 from the RRSP and TFSA combined, plus their OAS and CPP. In future years, they would increase their withdrawals by the rate of inflation. For instance, if inflation is 2.2% in year 1, they would withdraw $40,880 in year 2. The chart shows one big problem with the 4% rule. Dan and Kathy run out of money by the time Dan is 91 and Kathy is 88. Their net investment return simply wasn't high enough to make it work. Another problem is that their overall income is bumpy because some OAS pension starts in year 3 and some starts in year 6. Dan and Kathy should be drawing more income from their RRSP in the first 5 years to smooth out these bumps, but the 4% rule doesn't allow for it. The biggest problem, though, with the 4% rule is that it doesn't allow for adjusting your payments to reflect your actual returns. If your investment return is 10%, you would want to withdraw more than if your return was 3%. Once again, we conclude that this strategy doesn't work very well. The next strategy is better. It involves the use of a retirement income calculator. These online tools are offered by many financial institutions. A good retirement planning calculator will take into account income from all sources and adjust them as needed to determine how much you can draw each year based on certain assumptions about inflation and investment returns. For now, we'll assume that Dan and Kathy are using PERC, a retirement calculator developed by Fred Vitesse, but as we'll see, there are other calculators out there. Using PERC, Dan and Kathy can figure out how much income to draw from their RRSP and TFSA each year to deliver income that is rising smoothly for the rest of their lives. This income, by the way, will include a blend of principal and interest, which can be scary. What if you draw down the principal too fast and the money runs out? Well, it won't happen if you're using the calculator year in and year out. If your investments do well, you'll be able to draw more, and if you have some investment losses, the calculator will tell you to draw less. It would seem that Dan and Kathy are finished. Even if they earn only 3% a year net return, they will reach their investment target. This is a good time to step back and see what we've accomplished so far. We determined that drawing only interest didn't provide enough income, and it also resulted in a bumpy income curve. It's not a good solution, and we won't look at it again. Then we applied the 4% rule. It also produced bumpy income, but the bigger problem is that it doesn't allow for the income to be adjusted as time goes by. As a result, Dan and Kathy eventually ran out of money. We won't look at this strategy again either. Using a retirement calculator to determine how fast to draw down the principal provided a much better result. Dan and Kathy reached their retirement income target each and every year. But let's see if we can do better. Now, we'll use the same approach, but we will reduce the annual investment fees from 1.5% down to 0.6%. This can be done pretty easily using ETFs or maybe a robo-advisor. This may not seem like a big change, but it is. As you can see, reducing fees results in an increase in their income by about $4,000 a year. We will now present the most important idea. Instead of drawing their CPP pension immediately, we now have Dan and Kathy starting their CPP pensions at age 70. You might wonder why anyone would do this. Why wait to collect a government pension, especially if it means you have to draw down your RRSP faster to make up for the shortfall in income? Well, we find that the effect of waiting until age 70 to start CPP can be staggering. If they wait until 70, the amount of CPP payable is nearly 2.5 times as much as if they start CPP now. And here's what it does to their overall retirement income. This chart is pretty compelling. The amount payable from all sources in year one of retirement is now almost $100,000. Compared with the initial strategy of drawing down only the interest, they are now drawing about $45,000 more in year one alone. And the bonus is that this income stream is safer. As the chart shows, most of their income in their 80s comes from safe government sources that protect Dan and Kathy from both inflation and investment risk. So what did we learn? Smooth out total income, not just income from savings. Draw down the principal too. Use a good retirement calculator. Keep investment fees low. And finally, defer your CPP pension until 70, usually. If you want to do further reading, you might want to check out Fred Vitesse's book, Retirement Income for Life. It's widely available at bookstores and online. Of course, you'll also want to estimate your own retirement income. I've already mentioned PERC, but there are at least 2 other calculators you could try. The first is called Money Ready app, and the second one is offered by the Canadian government. As for Perk, it can be found at www.perkpro.ca. It has the advantage of being developed specifically to deal with the issues mentioned in this video. Also, it meshes nicely with the book Retirement Income for Life, which provides a lot more detail on the strategies described in this video and also identifies the special situations where the basic advice might not apply. I hope you found this video useful. Feel free to share it and to leave a comment below.